Everybody's mic on? Good evening, everyone. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Von Rudenberg.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Canestrino.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Sims.
Here.
Councilmember Pataglia.
Here.
Mayor LaBrosse is absent.
And can we all stand for the flag salute?
The Open Public Meeting Act first.
What?
The Open Public Meeting Act
Oh,
first.
okay, I'm sorry. I'm rushing this.
This meeting is being held in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-6 et sec. Notice having been published according to law with a copy on file in the city clerk's office and a copy posted on the bulletin board in City Hall.
Now we can stand for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Mr. City Manager, can we have the agenda, please?
Yes. Good evening. This is the CAL meeting for June 26, 2018. First on the agenda is a presentation from Fran Reiner, our planner on Zabriskie Street. And I apologize, I left my glasses downstairs. I'll be right back.
Need those glasses.
Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Councilman, Councilwoman, thank you very much. So this evening I'm going to present to you a plan that was done, it was presented actually at the May 9th Planning Board meeting for the Zabriskie Street redevelopment plan. As you can see, this map shows the location of this. Route 4 is on the north side of it. You have Kinderkamak Road along the left side, and then Zabriskie Street on the bottom. The property is a little, just around 5 acres. It's always important to note that these things aren't done in a vacuum. This plan is consistent with the state plan, the master plan for Bergen County, the 2001 master plan, and the 2009 reexamination report. We had presented this property to the planning board. It was previously designated as an area in need of redevelopment. It used to be the former Bergen County Police Department. There were some other Bergen County facilities that were on this that have since been knocked down. So the property has been designated, and then the next step in that process is to complete a redevelopment plan. As I mentioned, we presented this to the planning board in May. And so what we wanted to do is walk through that plan for you this evening, because you're going to be voting on it for an ordinance as a part of resolution 244-18. Just to note, it's important, and I highlighted a couple of things, that the existing zoning on this property is actually within the B2A zone, which allows multifamily dwellings. So the uses that are being proposed here in the redevelopment plan are consistent with the underlying zoning. The requirements, the bulk requirements that are again within the existing zoning, I've highlighted 2 of them. The existing zoning allows for 14 stories and 176 feet. It allows for 80% lot coverage. And then if you look on the last 2, it allows for somewhere between 300 and 600 residential units. Those are the existing zoning. The redevelopment plan that was presented proposed to allow the following uses, which would be residential, and that is a variety of different types of residential, including multifamily apartments, and stacked flats, duplexes, and so on. It also permits the use of commercial, which would include retail stores and shops, and again, the variety of uses that are listed there would be the commercial uses that are permitted. And then it also allows for accessory uses, which would include structured parking, and then it would include all the subordinate uses to the residential or retail that are listed here, which would be management, leasing offices, lobby, cafe, coffee bar. All of those are listed as accessory uses that are permitted. In the redevelopment plan, we are proposing, and just the dwelling unit sizes, 5% under 550 square foot, 20% between 550 and 650 square foot, 25% over 1,200 square foot. These are all very consistent with the existing rehabilitation plan for the downtown. The setbacks are 12 foot from the streets. You can see that the heights are similar in terms of the requirements, permitting 176 feet and 14 stories. The maximum number of units are 380, which falls within the 300 to 600 that's permitted in the existing zoning. and the lot coverage of 80% is also consistent with the existing zoning. It's important to note a couple of things that as a part of the redevelopment process, we get to dictate, the city gets to dictate the design standards. So we have requirements that require that the building be designed in a certain type, quality, materials. We also require that there are stormwater improvements. If you're familiar with this area, there is some flooding over by the train tracks. So we are requiring that the developer or any developer come in with stormwater improvements for this particular area to assist in the drainage and flooding issues that occur in that area of town. The parking requirements for this project would be consistent with the rehabilitation plan and consistent with any development around train station. This particular property is actually located within a quarter mile of the River Edge train station. So the parking ratios are very consistent with transit development. And as I mentioned, we have architectural design standards in the document for all of these particular items, including materials and character, entrances, structured parking, as well as streetscape. In the redevelopment plan, we had shown some concepts of what was being proposed. So again, Route 4 now would be on the right side of the page. Kinderkamek Road is running on a 45-degree angle, and Zabriskie Street is on the left side. So this represents what would be the first and really the second floor of the proposed development. So you have a total of a 6-story building, the first 2 levels being parking. The brown piece in the middle represents the lobby and entrance. So you have an intersection at the current location with your main lobby and entrance. You have residential units, which are the blue and the yellow, are what is fronting in front of the garage. So the parking structure is actually not visible from Kinderkamek Road at all. It's completely blocked by the residential that's being proposed there. And then you have the parking structure located behind. The parking structure is located where the majority of flooding occurs. So this is the appropriate location to place the parking. And then what you have on above those first 2 floors are 4 levels of residential. And so the colors kind of mix, but there are courtyards in the middle, which are the green. And then the blue and the yellowish kind of colors are the residential. So it's a double loaded corridor with units that face out onto each courtyard and face out onto the streets. And then what that looks like from an architectural standpoint, the top elevation represents the elevation that would be visible from Kinderkamek Road. So you can see that even though the first 2 levels are parking structures, residential actually fronts the parking structure. So you have residential fronting all of Zabriskie Street. The west elevation, which is the middle one, that is the short elevation closest to Route 4. So that's that short elevation there. And then the bottom elevation represents the Zabriskie Street side. So again, you can see although there's a full parking structure, the design, because of the architectural standards we put in place, make the parking structure look more like residential. So that, in a brief presentation, represents the redevelopment plan that we have presented to the planning board, was recommended for adoption, and now we're presenting it to you for your information.
Thanks so much, Fran. But next step is, I mean, they still haven't been before the planning board for site plan approval yet. That would be next, right?
So if this is adopted by ordinance, then the next step would be that the applicant would come in front of the planning board with a site plan application, and that site plan application would have to meet all of the requirements of the redevelopment plan for design, for layout, for materials, all those things.
Okay. Any questions? Anyone on the council have any questions for Fran? Everybody good? Jim? Everybody? Okay. Thanks so much, Fran. We really appreciate you coming and explaining this to us.
For the record, do you want to take any comments from the public before?
Before Fran leaves?
Yes.
Okay. All right. If anyone has, and I'll open it, ask for a motion to open to the public in case anyone from the public has any questions from our planner. Have a motion?
Offer.
Anyone that would like to ask a question in particular about this project and the redevelopment plan while our planner is still here, please come forward, state your name and address. Seeing none, can I have a motion to close? Oh, somebody's coming? Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't see you, Kathy.
Good evening, Kathleen Salvo, 47 Lodi Street, Hackensack. I saw this presentation at the planning board, and it was very good. The good part about this is that it was land that was not taxed for all those years, and it's going to be back on the tax rolls. So this is really a good, needed redevelopment project. Making it so big is kind of scary because we don't know if they'll come, because they haven't come for the other sites. And I also mentioned to Fran, he knows about, and that's why they put the retaining pond there. There is a creek that runs through the property. It's been there for years. So we have to worry about water problem. This will probably get occupied because it's close to, what's the town next to town? River Edge. And people like to be up that way. That other one went well when it's up
Avalon
there.
Bay.
Yeah, so that this will probably be one of the better things that Fran's done. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy, for your comment. Anyone else from the public? All right, now seeing none, can I have a motion to close to the public?
Offer.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thanks, Fran.
Thank you.
Okay. Next is a Pet Safe Grant opportunity. The city of Hackensack obviously is pursuing a dog park at our side park. And one of the grant opportunities that we're getting through our grant writer from Millennium Strategies is Pete Planos. And there's a $25,000 grant award being offered from Pet Safe. So we're pursuing that grant in conjunction with getting the designs and the final plans to pursue this. So we would need a resolution from the mayor and council for us to pursue this grant opportunity. So I'd certainly like you folks to consider that so we can move forward with the grant. Unless there's any questions, next is the MEL resolution regarding amendments to S716, S477, and S1766.
Sure. These are pending legislation that the MEL, who is your overinsurer, has requested a resolution. The first one has to do with a fire law that would allow for firefighters to get a presumption that if they get a type of cancer, that they would be funded. The problem with the legislation as drafted, unlike in other states, it includes all cancers. What the MEL would like to see is that they base it scientifically on cancers that are typically received by firefighters that aren't normal in the, where firefighters develop at a higher rate than the general population. The second thing they want to challenge or they have an issue with is statute of limitations. There is no statute of limitations on this. They are suggesting that, like in other states, it's capped at the age of 65. That when you turn 65, some states actually only have a 5-year statute of limitations. The last thing that they're concerned about with regard to this one is the legal standard of the presumption that the cancer was caused by their firefighter, their work as a firefighter. In normal civil cases, the standard is a preponderance of the evidence, basically 51% of the evidence. And we would be, as the town, be required, because it shifts, we're going to have to do this. The bill makes it clear and convincing evidence, which is a significantly higher standard, which would make it almost impossible to ever challenge a determination, or a case that someone is, a firefighter has developed cancer where he alleges that it was from his work. So while they're not against the legislation, they just would like to see it more in line with what other states have done, and also to protect the cities because of the amount of cost that would be involved with this. S77 has to do with the statute of limitation for sex abuse. Presently, that's 2 years. The way the legislation is presently listed is that they would take away all statute of limitations. Not only for the perpetrator, per se, the accused, but also it would put public entities that people could go back 30 years and say you failed to protect an employee, and therefore you could be liable for something that happened 30 years ago. What they are suggesting is that with regard to public entities, that there's a 7-year statute of limitations, but no statute of limitations for personal liability for the official or the employee who's accused of the act. So it would protect the city with a 7-year statute of limitation. The last one that they're questioning is in a wrongful death case. The new law proposes to allow compensation for emotional distress. Presently, the way the law works is you're allowed actual losses, medical, lost income, and also loss of companionship. This would allow emotional distress claims. They are estimating that this will, at least the Mel estimates that this will increase 6 to 10% of claim costs to the city. So they would like to see that we leave the law the way it is and we not allow emotional distress in wrongful death cases. So if there's any questions?
I just have a question on the first part where you're talking about limiting on fire-related cancers. Is that just for workers' compensation cases, or is that for insurance claims as well?
This would be workers' comp cases.
So it's only for workers' compensation. So of course, the individual would still be covered
Right.
insurance-wise, because of that.
Yeah, I mean, he
that's
doesn't lose
very
his insurance.
Correct.
Right.
It's only their ability to
they-
file a workers' compensation
Right.
case.
Right.
I think that's an important.
Right.
Anyone else from the council have any question on any of these? Okay,
No, sorry, the 65-year limitation.
No, that would be at age of 65.
Okay, right,
That would act like a statute of limitation because at that point you're on Medicare.
right, okay. And it can't go 5 years past that to 7?
Well, there's no limit right now.
Okay, okay,
Okay.
Okay,
Thanks,
next,
thanks, John.
thank you.
I'm sorry. Next on the list is the expansion of the Special Improvement District for Upper Main Alliance. The Upper Main Alliance, Patrice Forsman's here, Albert's here, who are actively participants and work daily with Upper Main Alliance to make the Special Improvement District better. And one of the thoughts was to expand that. So the Alliance has recommended the expansion of the Special Improvement District boundaries from Atlantic Street to Sussex Street and request the City Council to approve this. As we make all the improvements for Main Street and encourage our business on Main Street, obviously we're trying to raise the bar. Appearance, sales, shoppers, and part of that whole component is clearly the maintenance and the parking issues, all of these components are. So I think it just makes good sense for us to support this expansion. It'll help the city's appearance and look, and also hopefully the sales and redevelopment of our Main Street, not just physically, but the whole conceptual idea of that. I don't know if Teresa has anything that she'd like to say?
Really not, Ted. Thank you very much for your support all along on this. Main Street Alliance continues its intent to improve the business community and to support any redevelopment efforts. We feel very strongly that expansion to Sussex Street will only elaborate our plan to make the business district a more improved district by involving more of our property owners and merchants, and also establishing proximity to the very desirable historical district of downtown Hackensack. Albert, did you have anything?
Any questions of the?
I have a question from someone from the Alliance is, all right, so you're going from Atlantic, now you're going to Sussex. Are the business owners that are currently there, are they aware of this?
They have been mailed and emailed a letter from the Alliance indicating our desire to expand the district. And inviting comment, absolutely.
And that was my second part of my question. Have you had any feedback from any of the business owners one way or another as to how they feel about now being?
We have not, we
Yes, yes.
opened the conversation to them, and invited them to our board meeting as well. We have not heard anything back.
And should this be approved tonight, when will it go into effect? Do we have a? They've been notified.
If I understand the process, this is first read tonight, it would be second read would be in the July.
July meeting.
And then, so it would be as soon as the tax assessor's office would have the opportunity to put together, and it would have to correlate to whenever the tax notices go out quarterly, and then they would be assessed. So the requested assessment for this year, I think, is $385,000. So basically what would happen is in the last, I guess would be in the last 2 quarters?
Yeah, what would probably happen, it would be, I'm not 100% sure, but I would think that the new bills would go out when we send out the added assessment bills in October.
And what's the current percentage?
Well, it's not, it's a prorated share, so it's based on the size of the property, you back in a number, I think it's, it was 0.019.
0.198.
0.198. So what you would be doing is with the new properties that are in the expanded section, they would be offsetting or reducing everybody else that's in the existing.
Okay, so the budget is not going to
The
increase?
budget
really?
is not going to increase for this year, no. You would just see it offset.
Folks would just contribute less. I mean, and we all know, everyone can now participate in many of the things that the Alliance offers to its participants. So I think it's a wonderful
Clean
thing
and
to be
green,
doing
cooperative
that.
advertising grants,
But
facade.
I would like to make sure before we have the final reading that we maybe try to reach out to these folks again, Patrice, so if we could have some type of feeling that that they realize that they've been told about this and that they had the opportunity for feedback. And you can maybe bring it to us before the July 20, is it July 23rd? I think it's our next meeting, before the July 20.
So there's 24 property owners that are involved, and I'd be happy to solicit them personally to make sure that they're aware of the expansion once again, and to let them know the timetable.
And nobody respond yet.
I understand we had one request from a business owner, Side Chase, that was asking when this would be heard.
When the readings.
And Patrice had provided that information.
Well, we have a month to make sure that they have some feedback from some folks before we do the final approval. I mean, is everybody okay with that? Anybody else have questions?
But before the final approval, we need some input.
One of the
I think
things,
that would be helpful for us.
Yeah.
one of the things that we could also do is schedule a little time at the Cal meeting prior to the next meeting and earmark that for the special improvement
Discussion.
district. So that if people have some comments and they want to address it either publicly or before the council, they could do so. So we could schedule this time and
That's a good idea. That's a good idea.
Just for clarification, I don't know if the council has any specific notice or anything that they wanted to say specifically, or how they want it sent. I want to try to avoid having that conversation. I mean, we had sent it, I think, last time by regular mail to the registered property owner. Is that essentially what we're asking, or
I think we're gonna hear from the people that really got the business in Main Street.
I just would want to make sure that it's worded such that it's very important if you have comment or feedback that this is the time to do it before. And also maybe to add what Ted said is that we will bring it up for discussion at the next committee of the whole, should they want to come and personally address the council before the council finally, votes on it a final time. I think that was a good suggestion, and maybe that could go in this notice as well, with the date and time of the meeting, so folks would know that they could come here and we would, for them to have a voice heard. Yes, yes. Yes, I'm sure it will be, but this way we just make sure we offer that to people.
And as Albert did bring up, our cleaning green program obviously would extend down to the expanded district at our expense.
when do you want to talk about?
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Next, Jim Magan is going to have a brief discussion on the ordinances.
Okay. On for introduction tonight, there's 2 bond ordinances. And I just want to explain briefly, normally we wouldn't do 2 bond ordinances. We would do one multi-purpose ordinance, but one ordinance has to do with the general capital fund, which is funded by the city operating the city current fund. And the other one has to do with the parking utility capital fund, which is paid for by the revenue that the parking utility brings in. First ordinance is 32/2018, and I'm sorry, 32/2018, and it's the adaptive signal program, which has been discussed at a number of meetings that we've had here. Boswell Engineering's done a few presentations. In a nutshell, this affects 25 existing and new intersections throughout Main Street, State Street, and River Street. What it does is it uses video detection and it coordinates. It's kind of a smart technology regulating the traffic signals. Okay. In addition, we've also included in that ordinance $600,000 toward the sewer separation work that's being done on Main Street. The total of the ordinance is $1.9 million. The second ordinance is 33/2018. It's a $1.3 million ordinance, and as I said, it's paid for by the Parking Utility Capital Fund. Roughly about $900,000 of that is for the rehabilitation of the Atlantic Street parking garage. You remember in 2015, 2016, I can't remember, we commissioned a study, Boswell engineer, to study the structural integrity of the garage. And Boswell made a number of recommendations that we're looking to take care of. So approximately $900,000 will go toward the rehabilitation of the garage, and the balance of $400,000 would be for various parking lot improvements, paving, milling, paving, striping, landscaping, new lighting, things like that at parking lots to be determined. We have a priority list, but we'll define that list, a little further as we go along. And again, both those ordinances are on for introduction tonight. The public hearing and the adoption are scheduled for July 23rd. Just one note on the parking utility ordinance. Our parking utility is self-liquidating. What that means is that the revenue from the utility pays for the operation with no money from the city at all. Okay, and part of the process of a utility capital ordinance, which we haven't done since 2014, is I have to determine that the utility will still be self-liquidating even with this ordinance, and that analysis has been done. So even with this ordinance, we still expect that the parking utility will generate the revenue necessary to keep the utility going. Okay, that's about it. Again, July 23rd will be the public hearing and the adoption.
Thank you, Jim. Any questions from the council?
My apologies, I skipped over the introduction of the ordinance for the special law enforcement threes, which is SLEO threes. SLEOs are a new classification of special law enforcement officer being used for school security. So the city does not have anything that's covered in our current ordinance. So we have to amend our current ordinance and add in the classification of Class 3 Special Law Enforcement Officer, SLEOs. And they provide security to the public and non-public school and county college or school or college premises during hours when the public or non-public school or county college is normally in session, or when occupied by public and non-public school and county college students of their teachers or professors. And the Class 3 SLEOs would be compensated in the assignment at a minimum rate of $25 per hour and a maximum rate of $30 an hour, and shall not receive any benefits or be eligible to enroll for state-administered retirement system. So this is the amended insertion of the ordinance if the mayor and council approve.
And once again, this is something that we've been working closely with the Board of Education on. We've had one meeting, and we're having another meeting this Friday, actually between the city and the school board, to continue our discussions. So we know we have to get moving on this. September will be here before we know it, so.
Absolutely. And
Well-needed ordinance.
And these officers, they are allowed to carry a gun, right?
yes, they are fully trained, retired police officers that are going to be the maximum of 5 years out of service. Each police officer goes to the academy, goes and they receive a PTC, Police Training Commission certification. Once you leave full-time law enforcement service, the law used to be you could be out of law enforcement 3 years. After that, your certification would expire, or you'd have to go back to the police academy. Because there's going to be such a demand for SLEOs for the protection of our schools, the state has now amended that and allow for 5 years out of full-time law enforcement service. So these officers have to remain 5 years out and under the age of 65. Once they reach the age of 65, there's a mandatory retirement. So we have a lot of young officers that retire relatively young. A good portion of them leave service. If you come on the job at 21, you could leave at 46. I retired at 48. And then you can change that and put in more years of service, but you're not in the pension. Obviously, they don't need benefits. So it's a win-win for employment for retired law enforcement. And more importantly, it's a safety concern for communities, our children and our communities. And I think it'll be a positive step. So.
I think I read in the ordinance that we have some salary requirements associated with this. Are there hourly requirements? Can they work unlimited hours, or is there some
Well-
cap on the number of hours they could work per week?
Right, it's almost like the shore towns hire class 2 specials. And they work a lot of hours in a short period of time. Normally, the shore towns use them for the 90 days of the summer. So they may be working 40, 60 hours, but it's only for that brief period of time. You're not allowed to supplement law enforcement more than 20% of your full-time. SLEOs are a little different animal, but they will exceed more than 20 hours a week.
And the state
we-
allows that?
We
Good.
do.
Anyone else have a question on this?
Do they still have ongoing training?
They will still receive ongoing training, and obviously there'll be an in-house research class to make sure that everybody is, candidly up to snuff here. But for the position that they're applying for and the service they're going to provide, I'm sure that they will be fine.
Anyone else have questions?
Next we have is an approval of our environmental commission. We need an appointment. Roglio,
Rodrigo.
help me.
Rodrigo.
Okay. Diaz Miranda needs to be approved to be on the environmental commission appointment if the mayor and council approve.
That's great. We needed one more person to
We
fill
do.
that commission, so that's great. We got
do.
another volunteer. Wonderful.
And the last on my list is the River Edge agreement for sewer connection of Johnson Ave.
That's for that one small restaurant?
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
hooked up, it's a minimal amount, like 400 and something
Yes,
dollars,
it's
right?
$430.
Something like that, a
Maybe
year.
not a year. They did some calculation, and the calculation was the results is compounded decrease to 415. I would propose 418, no, that's the old one. The new one is $430. So I think that would define what we need to do to keep them in check. Yeah. As a result of compounded increases of $429.24, they proposed the CFO and administrator from the Borough of River Edge I propose a fee of $430. So if the mayor and council approves that, we will continue this relationship and move forward. And
Sounds
that
good.
would complete the city manager's report.
Thank you, Ted.
Thank you.
May I have a motion to open to the public?
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? With that, at this time, anyone who'd like to speak, please come up to the podium, give your name, address to the clerk.
Good evening, Richard Sullivan, Hackensack, New Jersey. I want to speak to Resolution 263, the resolution concerning the medical center in the city. And before I even deal with the substantive issues, procedurally, I have to urge you to table this. First of all, and I thank the clerk's office for getting me the copy of the agreement and the resolution in such a timely fashion, much appreciated. The city manager, with all due respect, Ted, you have no right under this form of government to sign an agreement. None. The only person who can sign a contract for the city is the mayor, and obviously in this case, he wouldn't be able to be one of the two deputy mayors. You cannot sign agreements. Interestingly, the last time we spoke about this, I pointed out that Mr. Trost had signed, and that was a problem, but we might get stuck with it in terms of apparent authority issues. It's not a good agreement, and I'm hoping not to have to address that. It's a losing agreement. I think you need to go back to the drawing board. I hope you consider tabling it. Because first of all, and by the way, the resolution is also deficient because it authorizes everybody but the mayor to sign. So do the right thing, go slowly. You have a lot of leverage here. I mean, if you, I'm sure you didn't, but you could read portions at least of Judge Bianco's opinion. He's the tax court judge who ruled in the Morristown case. It's very well reasoned. These hospitals are not going to get away with it. And I love the hospital. It's been great to me and my family, but that's not the point. I love the football Giants, but I think they need to pay taxes. I think the hospital needs to pay taxes. Please table it, do it right, straighten out the resolution, straighten out the agreement. I hope not come back during the public portion to excoriate you for passing a losing.
Mr. Sullivan, we're going to postpone answering your questions. Our tax attorney will be speaking to the public about it at the council meeting. So if you care to stay, he will explain the rules thing. Thank you.
Regina DePasqua, Parker Avenue. So the same night that the resolution is on, you're going to present it to us, but the resolution is probably a done deal. Just like the bond ordinance. Same night you have the hearing and you're going to adopt it. Just like with the grants from last time. There's no, where's the openness here? Where's the, transparency? That if people aren't at the meeting, they don't get a say. You don't give them any time in between. And that's, I don't know that you ever discussed this Hackensack thing publicly, even. But I have another issue. I observed, myself, an issue with the dirt at the M&M. City workers were moving truckloads of dirt from a private site on Main Street to the M&M to be used as fill. Now, I had put in an Oprah request. Where's the agreement that allows this to happen? There was nothing. I didn't get anything. There's a dirt pile at that site, a huge dirt pile, which has been uncovered. I don't know why that wasn't used to refill if it came out of there. So I asked if both sites were tested, and I got results back from the Main Street site, but there was nothing for the pile at M&M, which sits across from the ECDC, which has been uncovered, but it hasn't been tested. But it's not being used either. And it makes me wonder why. Why were our city workers, it was behind Seatown, It's plain as day. You see one of our trucks back up to a private construction site, and they're taking the dirt and putting it in our dump truck, and our truck is going to M&M and dumping it right into as fill. But I requested it, I didn't get anything, that there was an agreement. How could we go to a private site, our workers, our trucks, if the guy on Main Street needed to get rid of his dirt, that should be part of his contract. But if there was an agreement, if we were getting paid to do it in any way, I didn't get it in an Oprah request. And it's of concern because there's this pile of dirt, a huge pile of dirt sitting there. And if it was clean fill, why not just refill it? And if it's not, why is it sitting there uncovered? But I asked for test results on that pile, and there was no documentation on that either. It's a concern. And I'm wondering why our guys are doing that work. I'm wondering about the testing on the dirt and why our city guys were doing it. And nobody was hiding it, but I can't get the information that I asked for.
Just briefly, on the medical center agreement, we've been saying for the last couple of years that we're working together cooperatively with the medical center on an agreement, and we will have more information at the council meeting on that. But I personally have mentioned this to the public on many times, that this agreement was in process and we were making good progress on it, and we were very pleased to be announcing it tonight. As far as the other bond ordinances, those are ordinances. So tonight is just the intro. So, I mean, we took the time at the county meeting to have our CFO come in and explain what they were for, as well as having them on the docket tonight. So folks do have the opportunity to come back at the second reading where there's, open to the public and talk about those bond ordinances should they want to. I'm going to just defer to the city manager. I know I saw some information back and forth about soil testing and soil issues for M&M. Maybe Ted, you'd like to answer for Regina?
The contractor that Two Brothers Construction is there was an issue with the dirt that was on site for compaction and use. We found this contractor that obviously that we moved dirt from. The reason why we use city dump trucks is I'm not going to pay an outside contractor for work that we can do ourselves. The dirt that's going in the ground has been tested, so there is no issue. The issue of whether the dirt piles should have been covered sooner, they should. They are covered now. I can't give you a report of something that I don't have. There is not a contract.
There should have been if you're using, just to dot the i's and cross the t's. But that dirt pile wasn't tested. And it was there.
The dirt pile from the dirt that was transferred from the construction site to the M&M building was tested.
I have those results.
Yes, you do.
There are no results for the pile that's been sitting at M&M uncovered.
I only provide what I have.
So we don't know.
Understood.
There's kids involved. We don't know.
Here before, so good evening again. I had a problem with this dirt, and when you have to call the forces because your city's not doing their proper job and they're not protecting our kids. Stephanie, I'm very disappointed with you. Your child goes to that school, you pick them up every day, and that dirt was uncovered for 3 weeks. Made numerous phone calls to the building department. Building department said it's not my thing, it's Wayne's thing. He's the project manager, he's in charge of the whole project. The dirt is sitting there as close as you are to I am. The kids sit there, they taste it when they wait for the bus 10 minutes because they put them out there before the bus comes, and it wasn't covered. I had to call the DEP and the Soil Conservation to make Peter Tankay finally put the tarps on it, and it took 3 weeks for this to happen. Then the biggest joke was, well, we're going to make them wet it down. So they sent our men, DPW men, and union, look at this, because OSHA should get after you. On the site, they had no business belonging on it. It's a private site run by a private business. No hard hats on top of an 8 foot, it's got to be at least 8 feet soil, with a garden hose wetting it, which was a joke, because 10 minutes later with this heat, it evaporated and was blowing all over. All it needed was 3 tarps. I would have paid for them and given it to them myself. They're $30 a tarp. It's $100 for 3 tarps to cover it, and nobody was covering it because they don't care. Because this is a city project, and they don't abide by any rules. I'm asking for it to be silk screened. Finally, Maine Immerse is silk screened because the dust has gone over, and I asked for that to be done. It's finally done. The site that you all supported with Anderson has, I would love to put plywood and paint it. That's what it should be. This is a workable site with dust blowing all over the place in these kids' faces, and nobody's protecting them. And I had to really call other source to protect our kids because our city wasn't doing it. Peter Tankay wrote a bogus letter about keeping that plywood up. No construction going on Bridge Street and Main Street. No demolition going on, but they wanted the plywood up. It fell down 5 times. And this, which is a workable site, put the plywood up and paint it. Keep this dust from blowing in the kids. There's summer school. These kids are going to be exposed to that dirt as we speak. Again tonight, because I live right there, there's a whole chunk that's exposed to blowing around and blowing all over the neighborhood. The one across the street got an eye infection. This is an 8 foot high pile, and Peter Tankay promised he was going to cover it with the soil people. He couldn't cover it because there were no tarps. So he lied, and they had to go out and buy tarps. After 3 weeks of telling everybody, and project manager is at fault because the city building department said the project manager is in charge. And if he can't be down there every day to make sure this site is secure, that when they do put the tarp on, it has stones on. One end covered there, this whole area like this, 8 feet of dirt blowing all over the neighborhood and blowing in the kids' faces. And I had to call the troops in to call my city to give my city up because they weren't doing their job. It's embarrassing.
That's for you. Okay.
Thank you, Kathy, but I do believe the city manager said it's been resolved.
Yeah, after 3 weeks, Kathy. 3 weeks of the kids tasting it and breathing it.
I understand your frustration.
Unacceptable.
At this point, It has been resolved, and I thank the city manager for intervening and taking care of it.
Use DPW workers to go on site, they shouldn't have been there. The DPW workers went to wet it down with a garden hose, which is a joke, it's like spitting on it.
All right, Kathy, I think
All
your
right,
time is
so
up. Thank you
that
very much.
OSHA should get after you for that, too.
Mayor, for a moment, Kathy Salvo has reminded me of an issue that came up at the last meeting when she brought up that we didn't have nets at all of our basketball courts. So since she brought
Kathleen,
it,
please, it's the city manager's time to
so
speak.
since she brought it up, I wanted to state that the last time that meeting was held, myself and Councilman Battaglia the next morning went out and inspected all of the identified basketball courts that she said that were in ill shape or didn't have nets or didn't do that. And we went to every park that she identified, and only one, and that was Columbus Park, was missing a net. Then there was a discussion that came up that said the city is not spending the same amount of money for parks for only Carver. So I pulled the records from 2014, and Columbus Park was awarded $28,135 for new construction of a playground. 2015, restoration of the War Memorial at Hackensack Green was $1,590. 2016, Bergen Open Space Grant for Sheedy Park, $35,571 for construction of children playground. NJDEP Newark Bay Complex, Johnson Park, $695,000 was awarded. NJDEP Green Acres Grant, rehabilitation of baseball fields for Sheedy, $800,000. Stide Park, the Pet Safe Foundation grant, Stide Park was denied. We didn't get anything for that. Bergen County Open Space Grant, rehabilitation of tennis courts, awarded $42,000. NFL Football Grassroots Grant, installation of new football field turf, Hackensack High School, we were denied. Bergen County Open Space Grant, rehabilitation baseball fields for Sheedy, under review, $100,000. Bergen County Open Space Grant, rehabilitation basketball courts, Carver Park, under review. So I just wanted the public to know that the city takes their parks very seriously. We try to be as fair as we can. Obviously, we try to manage our resources the best we can. But the notion that only one park receives attention and the rest of them are not, I don't think is true.
Thank you. No, Kathleen, I'm sorry. No, it's, you had your opportunity to speak. Kathleen, you had your opportunity to speak. Anyone else from the public? Would anyone else from the public like to speak? If not, can I have, Kathleen, please, can I have a motion to close to the public? Can I have a motion to close to the public? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Anyone from the council like to speak now?
Well, the only thing that I want to add is like the Board of Education received $2 million from the state, and they were supposed to use like a $1.2 million to reserve for the high school field. I don't know when they're going to do.
That's additional funding as well. I think, in all fairness, a lot of our parks were neglected, as were many things in this city neglected. We had to prioritize paving. We wished we could have done it all at once. I think we're going through and we're identifying need, and I think the city's doing an excellent job of investing in its parks. I think if anyone has been a little neglected, it's Stide Park, and I'm very happy. I know Councilwoman Van Rudenberg is spearheading the effort to do the dog park and to do some rehabbing of the bathrooms over there. And I think that's, well deserved and long overdue. So we do realize that there may be other parks that need work, and we are happy to hear about anything that you think is appropriate for us to do, and we'll add it to our list to contemplate. Kathleen, please. All right, we need a resolution to go into closed session?
Yeah, we need a motion.
Motion? Going,
Oh, second.
all in favor? Opposed?
Whereas the mayor and council of the city of Hackensack deem it necessary to discuss certain actions under section 7B7 and 7B8 of the Open Public Meetings Act, which pertains to matters falling within attorney-client privilege, ongoing litigation, and personnel matters concerning the employment of a current or prospective public employee. Whereas the mayor and council of the city of Hackensack is of the opinion that such circumstances may presently exist, and whereas the mayor and council wish to discuss the following issues: personnel matters, ongoing litigations, matters involving attorney-client privilege, matters involving the purchase, lease, or acquisition of real property, any pending or anticipated litigation or contract negotiations. Now therefore be it resolved that the mayor and council of the city of Hackensack deem it necessary to exclude the public from this discussion. The outcome of the discussion will be disclosed within 90 days, or at such time as the interests of the city do not require confidentiality. Do you have anything?
No, I don't.
Okay. See you at 8 o'clock.
Thank you.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. First, I need a motion to close the executive session.
Offer.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Then I need another motion to close the committee of the whole.
Offer. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed?